Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Faith Chats, where our topic is always about faith, family, freedom, and America. Today, my guest is Michael Letts. Welcome to the program.
Always a privilege to be with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael.
I'm so excited to talk with you. To begin the conversation, as someone with over 30 years in law enforcement, what are your initial thoughts on the Department of Justice warning to California officials, including Governor Newsom and Representative Nancy Pelosi, regarding the threats to arrest federal ICE agents during immigration enforcement operations?
Well, it just shows you how far off cue leftist liberal ideology has gotten. Well, let's just be blunt, Mike. I mean, it doesn't make any difference whether they agree or disagree with the position that the federal government is taking. They do not have the jurisdiction to intervene. That's obstruction of justice. They can be charged criminally, and they will be charged criminally with obstructing justice. I mean, they've got to understand they're on the wrong side of this issue, Mike. 75% of the American population wants to feel safe. They want this crime issue taken care of. You've got Antifa and others, Black Lives Matters. I mean, we could go down the list who are determined to make sure that they are opposing ICE and law enforcement. And what are ICE doing? Let's make sure we're very clear because we want to, put to bed the myths that are out there. Antifa and those say that ICE is going in and just jerking people off the street, making false arrests and deporting people who are American citizens. Well, let's look at the facts. When this administration first started roughly 9 months ago, we had the highest crime rates in our history, and a lot of that was contributed by open borders. Open borders letting anybody to come through. We had plenty of drug cartels members, terrorists, child sex traffickers, and others who are illegal immigrants who had entered this country illegally. Of course, by the way, that's a felony. We have a process. We welcome people into this country, but like any other country, right, we have a process. Here's the terms. You want to come in, you abide by the terms. You can't just decide you're going to disobey the terms and sneak up under the curtain. It doesn't work that way. And these people had all done that. So they were already felons. But they are not only just felons by coming in illegally, they had criminal records either in their country or once they got here. They began to vandalize, steal, rape, murder, and they were criminals in our country. And we had them by the hundreds of thousands, not just a handful. Literally, we think over 1 million to 1.5 million with criminal records. And so we determined that the best way to make the American people safe was to find those people and get rid of them one or two ways. Lock them up in our jail system and not let them out. But then, of course, Mike, you and I got to get stuck with the bill to having to house all these people or send them back to where they came from. Now, initially, when we were going to send them back, most of the governments didn't want their people back. They don't want them back. Keep them over there. In fact, some of these countries had emptied their jails and encouraged them. You want to not get prosecuted here? Go north. Go to America and don't ever come back. Of course, we put the pressure on. You don't accept your own citizens back. We're going to cut off all foreign aid. We're going to cut off all diplomatic relations, and it will cost you tenfold what it will cost you to bring your citizens back. They understood dollars, and so they quickly backed down and said, "Okay, send us our citizens back. They have criminal records, and we'll prosecute them and house them here." And that's what we've been doing. And now the left, and why is the left doing this? Let's be very blunt, Mike. Let's put it all in perspective. This program has been so successful all across the country, especially in major cities. It's reduced crime by huge percentage points, beginning to restore law and order. Those are all positive things. That's what 75% of the American people want. So what they're scared, Mike, is that if this program succeeds the way it is succeeding, what's going to happen in midterm elections? People are going to go to the polls and say, "Oh man, I can actually go to the poll and not have to worry about getting shot. I wonder who did this for me." They're going to remember it was this administration that did it, and they'll continue to support this administration. So, regardless of the logic, the leftist liberal ideology cannot allow anything positive to be viewed coming from this administration. So they take these crazy, stupid ideas to think that somehow, as Governor Newsom and others, we have authority over the federal government. We're going to tell you that we're going to start arresting ICE agents for arresting criminals. Craziest thing I've ever heard of. What will happen is if they try it, they're going to get popped so hard. Because remember now, we don't just have federal law enforcement officers, we have partnered with our military assets. I don't think Governor Newsom wants to have the military come in and take him out and go ahead and remove him from office. That'd be very embarrassing. But that is exactly what will happen if he continues to threaten, along with Nancy Pelosi or anybody else, that they're going to interfere with the justice that our ICE agents are doing. It is a lawful order, it is a just order, and they have no jurisdiction over that. And if they continue to threaten, they're going to find themselves on the wrong end of the law, and they're going to find themselves behind bars for having threatened to obstruct justice.
So the DOJ letter invokes the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution to assert that state officials cannot prosecute federal agents for actions taken in their official duties. From your experience as a state constable and chaplain in South Carolina law enforcement, how do you view the balance between federal authority and state local resistance in high stakes situations like immigration raids?
Well, it's very simple. One of the supremacy clause they're talking about is, that's just the way it works. When we first started this country, states were supreme, but you couldn't have win against Britain, against England, if you had 13 different states with 13 different armies running around trying to coordinate their army on their own and decide you may have nobody attack the British, you may have 13 attack all on the same side. So they realized we had to have a centralized federal government. That's what we created in the Constitution. And we gave very specific powers to the federal government. And we said very clearly anything not given in the Constitution remains the sole sovereignty of the states. But what typically was given in the Constitution? Now, there's a bunch of amendments. We're not going to go through every amendment, Mike. What are some of the main tasks that were given to the federal government? Formulate an army, protect our borders. We're going to all become one country, and you have a military that will protect our borders. You also have the right to provide common defense locally. In other words, we'll also have some federal officers because of jurisdictions. You can't have a country that's run if you can do one thing in one state and you can't do it in the next. You have to have uniformity. So there were a couple of things that were established, and it was very clearly, specifically said on those issues, such as the military, such as federal law enforcement, they have superiority. What that means is that one state can't say, well, I don't want us to go to war with, we talk about in World War II, with Germany. So we're not going to let any of our people go help fight across these. They have to stay here. It just doesn't work. Everybody knows that. And so that is an illegal order, and that's why the supremacy lies with the federal government. On these issues, the supremacy lies with the federal government. Now, they didn't say, hey, we're a dictatorship. Here's what it was said very clearly. These issues are supreme with the federal court. If you don't like them, however, every state and every location has representation on the federal government level. You don't like what we're doing, you don't like the immigration laws, have your representatives introduced into Congress and change it. There is a mechanism for you dealing with your grievances. Now, the only time that didn't work was, of course, when we had the Civil War and the issue, of slavery or states' rights, among other things, to where the states tried and they couldn't seem to get things through Congress. There was a lot, people don't realize the history. They were very close at that time to accomplishing a resolution to say that those states that had slavery would keep it, those states that didn't would not have it. New states coming in either would have a choice to be slave states or free states, or I think there was even a proposal just to make every other state that came in from that point on a free state. But they were working through that process, and no, that wasn't acceptable. They didn't want, and I understand, they didn't want slavery, period. So basically, they told the South, no, you either give it up or else. The South thought that was a violation of their state rights, and that's how we had the Civil War. But quite frankly, this is not an issue of the Civil War. We're not talking about slavery. We're talking about arresting criminals. How would you not want to arrest criminals who have violated, killed, murdered, raped, whatever they've done, and for bringing them to justice? That's just sheer ludicrousy. And then, to think that they have the authority over the federal government is just beyond me. It just shows you how, yeah, far skewed their thinking has become.
So threats like those from Pelosi and Mullen to arrest federal agents if they violate California law could create confusion and hesitation on the ground. How might this kind of rhetoric affect the safety and operational effectiveness of ICE agents and other federal law enforcement officers during enforcement actions?
Well, it'd have a huge effect if we actually paid any attention. Because if you go in and now you've got local police trying to arrest federal police, who benefits? The criminals. They're sitting back there having a Coke and a popcorn, laughing and watching, saying, "I wonder which one's going to win." I mean, totally destroys the purpose. The purpose of these federal law enforcement raids are to lock up criminals. First of all, illegal aliens, or sometimes we're talking about citizens. You say you're not supposed to touch citizens. No, if we find a citizen that is out on bond, who has broke his bond, who's trying to just escape justice, we're going to pick him up at the same time. Okay, we're not trying to show discrimination. We're only picking up more people. We're picking up lawbreakers. Period. Our effort and goal in the federal government is those who are here illegally who have committed crimes. But anybody we run into that is on the wayward side of the law, we're not going to ignore, we're going to pick them up at the same time. That's what's making this program so successful. So I just think it's absolutely ludicrous that they would think that they could prevail on this, because the flip side of this is they're going to create confusion. The criminals are going to benefit. Crime's going to skyrocket, and then if crime really does skyrocket, they think they've seen something bad. Now I'm talking about Newsom and the rest of them. We'll invoke the Insurgency Act, and they won't have any choice then, and we'll be rounding them up, including them, for obstruction of justice.
So, California has a history of sanctuary policy that limits cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. In your view, do these state federal conflicts undermine the overall morale and unity among brothers and sisters in blue across different agencies? And what role could organizations like InvestUSA play in bridging those divides?
Well, let's take the first part of the question. And of course, MSU yes, is already doing that, bridging the gap and the divide. But let me use a classic illustration. This was not California. This was Illinois and Chicago. As you will recall, there were a group, 30 ICE agents who were headed to provide security to the ICE detention center. They were ambushed by Antifa and others. Their cars, the Antifa cars, and all blocked them in so they couldn't get out. Then began to ram them with SUVs and trying to, while they were in the vehicles, trying to create physical harm. They immediately got on the radio and called for, distress, officer down, officer assistance call. First time in history, Michael, that call's not been answered. First time in history. And you say, what happened? Dispatch got it. They did what they were supposed to do it. They immediately put it on the wire. We have officers in need of assistance, officer down. Every Chicago PD officer dropped what they were doing, didn't make any difference if I was arresting you or not. We dropped what we were doing, jumped in the vehicles, hit the lights, full power, headed directly to try to assist officers who are in distress, officers in need. And what comes over the radio? A call from the deputy chief of patrol saying, stand down, we're not going to assist. You know what that did to the morale of the Chicago police officers? Not just the ICE officers, to the morale of people, period, in law enforcement. You're going to tell me that my life is not valuable enough when I'm trying to enforce? You're not paying me much. I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect the citizens. My life is in danger, and you're going to deny my fellow brothers the ability to come help rescue me? I never heard of before, and it was the first time. So it's the same situation California is trying to create here. They're trying to say, well, we don't want to cooperate. We're not going to help our brothers in distress. Have they absolutely lost their mind? They have. They're losing officers left and right just on that principle alone. Why would you want to be in law enforcement in California? Because if they'll do that to federal officers, perhaps they'll do that to you next. Well, I don't like the way Michael's handling, his department's handling these particular issues. So send out the message. Nobody back them up. If they get assaulted, they're on their own. That's not how the system works, Mike. And I will tell you this: it's never going to work that way, and there are going to be huge repercussions. Already are repercussions because of it, and they're just beginning to see the tip of the iceberg.
So the DOJ has explicitly warned of potential investigations and prosecutions for any criminal conspiracy to impede federal officers. Based on your leadership in law enforcement advocacy, what do you see anticipate as the real world legal and practical fallout for state officials who pursue such threats, and how might this deter or escalate future confrontations?
Well, here's what we've got, Mike, and it's very good. So glad you brought the situation up because it compounds another whole issue that we're talking about. You have the leftist liberal ideology that are trying to basically they're trying to overthrow the government. They're trying to tell the feds we don't respect you, we don't recognize you, we're going to do our own thing. Now, bear in mind, if we don't respect you, then I don't respect your election either. So, yeah, I don't view you as a president anymore. Now you have anarchy. None of us want that. But what are they attempting to do? They're attempting to manipulate and do this and go forward because they think they have activist judges who will back them up. Now, remember, these judges are supposed to be, by the Supreme Court definition itself, only able to rule in a certain area, not nationwide. But they're pushing their agenda through these activist judges nationwide to try to restore power back to themselves. That's something the American people can't tolerate, nor will this administration tolerate. So, by the fact that they're trying to manipulate the jurisdictional and the justice system, shows us another key issue here, Mike. We don't just have problems with elected officials who are obstructing justice, who will suffer the consequences. They will be held accountable. But now you have an issue we're going to have to look at our judicial system. How corrupt is our judicial system? These activist judges, you know, they like to hide behind the word I'm being an activist judges. No, what you're actually being is you're being an insurrectionist. You're actually defying the government of the United States, the same as any enemy combatant would be doing, trying to destroy our Constitution and our government. And quite frankly, I think it's time that we start holding these people accountable instead of just saying, "Oh, okay, we'll let your ruling stand for now. We'll take it to the appeals court, Supreme Court. 5 years later, we'll finally overrule you." That doesn't teach anybody anything. These judges need to be actually held accountable. They need to be arrested and they need to be tried for treason. And that, you start doing that, Mike, and see how fast these people start coming back to their senses. They're off in la la land right now because they're not being held accountable. But you start holding people accountable, it'll change very, very quickly.
Your organization's mission at InvestUSA focuses on equipping officers with bulletproof vests to ensure they return home safely. In light of this DOJ California standoff, how do political threats against federal agents highlight the ongoing need for enhanced protective gear and support for all first responders, including ICE personnel?
Well, I'm glad again you asked that question because let's talk about what's just been occurring in the last 2, 3 days. You've had the southern cartels in Mexico who have now issued a bounty of $10,000 per head for every ICE agent killed. They'll pay out $10,000 per head to those who are killing them. You've now got Venezuela that is attempting to supply its members that they send. And Trinidad Guetta is one of their key gangs in Venezuela. And they have Trinidad Guetta members in every state. They've been trying to transport more along with drugs and armaments. And of course, the president has sent a fleet of ships. Then he sent the carrier group, the USS Gerald Ford, just in the last 24 hours. And we've sunk now, I think it's 12 now. 12 ships that have been trying to transport gang members and drugs into the United States. We fired a warning shot. They did not respond. Thought they could outrun the U.S. Navy. Big mistake. And we sent them to the bottom of the ocean. Now we have 10,000 troops in transports off the coast of Venezuela. We have our insertion and evacuation uh, uh, airborne teams ready to insert our special ops. We have our special ops teams there, the best in the world. And here's what the president has said: if you want to continue to operate this way to try to do uh, destabilize and try to destroy or kill American citizens through drugs. We're going to terminate the problem. What does that mean? The president's going to send in ground troops, and people say, "Oh, we're going to war." No, we're not going to war. We didn't go to war in Panama. We didn't go to war in Grenada. What we did is we took military operations and eliminated a problem. We'll do the same thing here. We're going to go into the drug camps, drug cartels, and eliminate them. I tell people, give it about 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, we'll be gone. Because when we go in, we don't just go in and knock over the frying pan and make it difficult for them to have to recook the stuff again tomorrow. We eliminate it. We destroy it. We leave no evidence behind. I mean, we will literally take them out to where you'll never find them again. And that's what we're going to do. By the way, same thing to the southern cartels in Mexico. You want to threaten our boys? Go ahead. See how far that gets you. Because if I were you, I would call mama and tell her I love her real quick. Because you probably won't get another chance to do that very shortly. And you say, "Oh, you're just blowing smoke." Let me tell you a little quick story, Mike, that most people don't realize. You remember right after the administration was sworn in, we closed the borders. And
Right.
the cartel threw a fit. Oh, they were losing billions of dollars of drugs, etc. And they decided they were going to retaliate. You remember what their retaliation was? Anybody that comes across the border, any American comes across the border, they're going to pay a big price. Well, nothing happened for the first 2 weeks. Then 9 college students went across there. They captured them, tortured them, murdered them, butchered them, sent their body parts back. The United States said, "Okay, understand it." Now, you notice you haven't heard another word out of the northern cartels because I made the comment on the air. President didn't say anything against it. We just didn't say no. I said, "You know what? We got the best special forces in the world. You kicked the wrong dog. Uh, you won't be around much longer." We wiped that place out, Mike. We did it quietly, but there are no northern drug cartels along the border anymore. We wiped it clean. We did it once. Hey, folks, we're fixing to do it again. Mexico, you won't have a drug problem anymore. We're going to take care of it for you. Venezuela, Colombia, you won't have the problem anymore. We're going to take care of it for you. That is what our military is supposed to do. The Constitution says we are to provide for the common defense. That means protecting you. And that means we're going to protect you at all costs. And this is just part of that protection. Thank God we've got a president that understands the Constitution.
So to close out the interview, Invest USA serves as a voice for first responders sacrificing needs. What message would you like to send to ICE agents and other federal officers facing these threats? And how can the public support initiatives like yours to bolster their protection amid such political challenges?
Well, two things. First of all, to all of our agents, ICE agents, and just law enforcement in general. I know we have a great need for active shooter vests. These are the vests now that we're having to provide. People say, "Well, I've seen them with vests before." Those are the old vests, the ones that wear under the shirt. They can only stop a handgun. Trust me, the drug cartels, the sex drivers, the terrorists are not using handguns. They're using AK-47s, long-range rifles now, and that won't stop that. Only an active shooter vest will. And we have 90% of our officers who do not have active shooter vests. So what I'm telling them all across the country, we are providing them as fast as we raise money to get them. We're here to help make sure you get home safely to your families. Second of all, I would remind America, it's a very unique position to be in law enforcement. We pay you very little. We ask you to literally every day go out and think you may not come home, put your life on the line. Not very many people will do that, Mike. So what I'm asking America is, look, we want a place where your children can be safe, where you can not worry about them going in the front yard and going on a swing and enjoying life. You want that. You need to support those who are providing it, our first responders. So show your solidarity. Go to Invest USA. That's INVESTUSA.org. It's a charity.org. Make a contribution to make sure they have a vest. But then the second thing I'm asking you to do is you see a first responder today, just tell him thank you. Let me give you a couple little quick statistics. We have the highest death rate we've ever had in law enforcement. We have the lowest morale we've ever had in law enforcement. We have the highest suicide rates. Why do you think we have suicide rates? Because they think America doesn't care. I don't believe that. I believe 75% or better of Americans strongly support law enforcement. They need to hear it. They don't just need to think it, they need to hear it. So tell a cop today, tell a first responder, tell a firefighter, thank you for your service. If you can't pay for their coat, buy them a cup of coffee. Let them know that we're standing shoulder to shoulder with them. And then the final thing I would tell you is It's so important to have listen to programs like yours, Mike. Thank you so much for what you're doing because America needs to know the truth. Folks, I hate to tell you this, but mainstream media is not our ally. They are our enemy in this country. They want to do everything they can to propagate falsehoods and lies to make you support the wrong cause. We're supporting America, our Constitution, and the patriots, who people who want to willing to die to keep this country free. So make sure you get your information from the right places. Support those who are supporting America. Tell the mainstream media to go broadcast in China or in Russia. I'm sure they'd be welcome over there. God bless you for what you're doing, Mike. God bless America. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
God bless you, Michael. Have a great day.
You too.